when you agreed to be on the podcast, I had no idea how much history you had in the sport. So like after I did a little research on you, I'm like, I'm surprised she even said yes. You've been doing this for a long time. I mean, you've got chops. You've done this.
I've done it for
Haven't you? What do you have to say to that?
I don't know. I'm just not one to ever blow my own horn, but I've been lucky to be in it from the beginning. I've had some great dogs. I've gone to invitationals. I've done summits many times and had summit titles, and
yeah.
so
it's so funny how little kind of sometimes we know about the people who are judging us, right? Like the amount of scent work stuff you do is almost overwhelming between the judging and competing. And there's like all these letters flying around: AKC, NACSW, UKC, NASDA, ASCA. I mean, how do you even keep up? I don't know.
I don't usually. And it's funny because a lot of people write all their dogs' abbreviations of their titles, and I don't. I mean, I try to remember the last one so I can know the next level, but I don't have a list of all my dogs' titles after their names. I have no idea. I don't even know what half the abbreviations are.
Yeah, no kidding. All right. Well, I should say this is Alert Scent Work. I'm Scott, Murphy and Kiva's dad. And today it's Vicky Lovejoy, mom to many dogs. And again, I was overwhelmed by the number of dogs I think you have. So introduce us to who you are the mom of.
Right now, currently?
Yes, currently.
I do currently have 6. And, I remember an old Paula Poundstone podcast where she was talking about how did you end up with 14 cats? And she said, well, I had 13 and I got one more. Yeah, so I had 5 and I got one more.
Right. What are their names? Help me put a name to this crew of yours.
Yeah. So I've got Kitty Hawk Beryl Markham. I named her after Beryl Markham, the pilot in the 1900s. Cool story. And I thought a flying creature was a good representative of Beryl, because I do a lot of agility too.
Yeah.
And then I have JJ, Jumpin' Jack Flash is his registered name.
Okay.
And they are the foundation sire and dam of my breeding. I do some coolie breeding, so they were the start of it. And so I have their daughter, Vega, Lockheed Vega, after Amelia Earhart's Lockheed Vega, because they're all flight things.
Right. We're learning a little something about you here, I think. You're fascinated by the history of flight.
Exactly. And then I imported a male from Australia last year his name is Gaston. I always say, you have to say it with a French accent. Gaston.
Yeah, okay.
But I call him Gas. And then Vega had a litter last year, and this summer, and I still have one of her babies who's pretty fabulous. And here's another little bit of trivia history. Bessie the Fire Horse, because Amelia Earhart's Lockheed Vega, in which she flew across the Atlantic, I think, in one of her record-breaking flights, she was named Bessie the Fire Horse.
Got it. Yeah.
Your planes.
You have a tight theme going on. I appreciate that.
Yeah. And then I have the outlier, which is the Vizsla, and that's Phoenix.
How did this journey, or some might say obsession, start for you? I mean, like at one point, you were living life, Vicky.
A normal life.
Yeah, right. You weren't doing scent work. You didn't have 6 dogs that did scent work. You weren't judging scent work. Like how did it all start? Where did the obsession begin?
Well, I would have to say it was real. I was lucky enough to be in the classes at the ground floor of sort of layman's scent work. Fun nose work is what they called it when Jill Marie and Amy and Ron first came up with this idea. Jill Marie was the training director at the Long Beach Humane Society, where I took some agility classes. And I had a shepherd that ended up having some elbow dysplasia, so I couldn't do agility with her anymore. And they had just started offering these fun nosework classes, no competitions or anything. But then a bunch of us wanted a little bit more, and so we started to have some sort of fun events based on detection trials. And then pretty soon, we wanted real trials. And so I got the school where I was teaching was able to be used several times to host trials, and other area schools in the Los Angeles area were sort of our first dipping a toe into the waters of competition. And then at some point, we had a few trials before they formed NACSW. And it's just, and I used to say it's an addiction. Like, you get started and you can't stop.
Yeah, no, I think we all can relate to that.
Yeah.
So you weren't able to do agility. That's why you thought, well, I need something to do. I'm going to sign up for scent work. But what hooked you? What made it the addiction for you?
I think what really hooks people is
No, I
the
don't want people. I want you. What hooked you?
okay, we'll get to other people later. For me, it's just the fascination of how the dog is teaching us, and they're the ones that are doing the work and figuring out the problem, and we have to be smart enough to figure out what they're telling us.
Yeah.
And in some ways, people used to think of it as the lazy. People would go, oh, when I'm old and tired, I'll just do nose work. It's like, well, it's a lot of work. But it's a lot of work because we are so focused on learning from our dogs and listening rather than telling them what to do. And I just have always been an animal lover, and so I have a great respect for the ability of animals to try to communicate with us and incorporate us into their world rather than vice versa.
Yeah. Yeah. So like a lot of people have talked about this story of they ended up in scent work because they were in agility. That was their number one for a while. And then something happens and they end up at scent work, or it's a secondary thing. And I hear this story a lot where people, they're just amazed by how the dog does what the dog does. And instead of telling the dog, jump over this, go through this tunnel, like this idea of letting the dog lead the search, that can be really appealing.
There's so many dogs of different breeds and backgrounds, and people. And as a judge now, seeing people that may not, I can remember a few years ago an older woman who had an assistant, trialing a dog, and she was probably, I want to say she was maybe in her 90s, in a walker, and still, she was slow, but she was still out there doing it and having fun, and it was what brought her joy. And I thought, yeah, I mean, anybody who wants to learn about it can do it, you know.
And definitely one of the things I love is, like, how many different dogs there are. Like, I
Yes.
I love it when a dog you wouldn't expect to be there just, goes out and has a great time. And, I'm really glad you also brought up how anybody can play the game, because I too have seen people in wheelchairs. I one time was at a trial where this woman who was blind
Yes.
had her assistant sketch out on her back what the search area looked like.
Oh,
And then she would go into the search area and search with her dog, and when her dog alerted, she could tell through the leash, and she had a tension thing to make sure that it was an alert, and she'd walk down the leash and touch the dog, and she could tell, and it was just so inspiring to watch that. That's cool. You've run all sorts of dogs. Like, a lot of times you'll run into people who just kinda run one type of dog, and I wanted to dig into that. So, you've ran Aussies, Coolies, Vizslas. I always not
yeah.
quite can't
Yeah,
pronounce that right, but, I
that's
mean,
good
that's
enough.
yeah, that's a wide spectrum, and I've only kind of at times heard people talk about, "Well, your breed kinda dictates your approach," and I thought that was silly until, I got around people that knew what that meant. How do you adjust your scent work based on the breed? Give us an example of that just to help people understand how that can make a difference.
Well, I had German Shepherds for a long time, and they've been bred to be guard dogs, to be very, or herding, either way, doesn't matter. But very aware of their environment, and to check everything out. And so typically, and I see this in clients that still have shepherds, a shepherd will go into a search area and make catalog all the hides, and just move on, and then check the perimeter, and then maybe get back to work. And so I had a shepherd that would do just that, and I got to the point where I would notice, like, where she went first, because 90% of the time that was where a hide was. But she wouldn't stop at it because she had to check out the room, and the who was in there, and then she might come back and work it later. But I started to try to record that in my brain. So, and it wasn't, and I couldn't, I think where we get in trouble is when we try to interrupt those things that have been so genetically instilled too much. You can leverage them, but I think it's, if we try to override them, we can sometimes get in trouble.
Yeah.
And I have some of my other herding dogs, sort of, not all, but some, typically below the threshold and go to the back, work from the back forward. So,
and is that because that's how they would herd sheep? They would go behind the back of the. Oh.
yeah, absolutely.
Wow, that's great. So, I mean, if you have one of those breeds, you just have to go, well, this is something I'm going to either have to train or just have to accept. I'm going to have to come back to the threshold. I guess we're going to the back of the room first.
Yep, absolutely. And when I remember at a Elite P trial recently, I thought it was a long, narrow hallway with rooms, all the rooms off the hallway were in play. And I thought, I'm going to take control. Usually I let this dog, Beryl, run off leash. I thought, no, I'm going to take control of it. It'll be more efficient. And I really wish I had just let her run off leash, because I think by taking control of it, I kept interrupting her desire to chase the odor the way she wants to chase the odor.
Right. So. Yeah. That's a really valuable lesson. I want to talk about, as a competitor and a judge, how those two things have crossed in your life. So how has judging influenced how you compete?
I learned a lot from judging, both things I like that handlers do, and I don't want to sound like I don't like, but things I notice that don't work as well. They didn't go into that corner, or the things of talking dogs, the different ways we talk dogs into hides because maybe they're confused. So, I learn a lot from judging, and I try to remember those things when I go in, and I still make stupid mistakes. So,
yeah. How many rounds have you watched? But I bet you still talk your dog into things sometimes.
Oh, absolutely. My favorite was not recently, but a couple of years ago. And I'm positive I'll do it again sometime, was an end of the day Nosework 3 container search. And I went in and I was like, how come she's not looking at the boxes? She's not searching the boxes.
Uh-huh.
In the back of the mind, I'm thinking they wouldn't put a blank search at the end of the day, And so, yes, I finally forced her to alert on something, and it was a no. And then I just thought, oh my God, I'm such an idiot. So anyways.
So it sounds like judging has influenced how you compete, just in the fact that you get to watch so many teams work together.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also try to think about, I go back to how I felt in my early days. I'm a little more resilient now when I make mistakes and it doesn't go well. But I know early on, I used to come back and tell Ron or Amy, I'm sorry, I messed that up. And I would just feel like the bottom of the bottom of the barrel. But I've learned. So I appreciate that when novice people, especially, make a mistake and might feel devastated. And it's a learning opportunity. So as a judge, I try to support. When things don't work out, still make it positive. And
so if I came in and I'm a novice and I just completely blew it, what would you say to me? And I want the tone. I want the tone you would use too.
Perhaps you should think of a different sport. No, I'm kidding.
What a strange coincidence. I've heard that so often, that maybe nosework isn't for you guys. I don't know. Maybe Bass Cat would be kind of fun. I know you're kinder than that. Well, that's good that you can bring that compassion. I'm sure, participants really appreciate that. Is there a time where you were in a round and that compassion made a difference, or something a judge said made a difference, especially in those early days when maybe you were a little hard on yourself? Or even, we can be hard on ourselves now, even with all these runs under our belt.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just, I was so lucky to be able to trial under Ron and work with Ron. And he was so, you knew in NW3s when you found all the hides, because of the way he would say, yes, when you called finish. It just, his enthusiasm and excitement for his people, all people, not just his people, but people to succeed.
I appreciate that. So is that something you try to do? You try to celebrate each victory?
I do.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes a difference as a competitor when you're sitting there and the judge is just kind of like, yep, or, correct. Opposed to like when they're excited, they're generally kind of enthused, and you don't have to go over the top, right?
Oh, Yeah. I just, that's when I say find a hide, I might try to have a happy voice, an excited voice for them.
Just like you do for your dogs. Are you so if I ever got a detective Q under you, would hugging be allowed and celebrating or no?
Well, if somebody I know, no, I'm no problem
No,
hugging
fair,
people. Yeah,
fair,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Do you kinda share
Oh
those
yeah, the
experiences? You try to
excitement.
yeah,
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
cool. When you're judging, what are you trying to accomplish when you set challenges for competitors? Or we could even explore this, whatever's more intriguing to you. What kind of an environment do you try to set up for them based on what we just kinda talked about? What are you trying to accomplish when they walk into your search area?
Well, I really, I want them to be fair hides, and I want it to be. I don't want. It doesn't mean that's easy, but I want it to be fair. So, like when I'm setting up an area or looking at an area, I want to look at an area that's going to offer interesting hide locations, as well as just an interesting search location, because they may not be one. They may not be both one and the same. When I'm setting up hides for a novice, I want it to be something. I mean, it has to be sourceable in any venue. I want it to be someplace where the dog could get it from multiple sides or directions. Doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a chair sitting out in the middle of the room, but still, there's more than one way to, one direction the dog could get it from. Because in novice, it should be, can your dog go into a new environment and find a hide? It's not. It shouldn't be a complicated calculus problem.
Right. That comes later.
Yeah, exactly. So in detective, and what I've learned in detective is, again, they don't have to be individually challenging hides, because in detective it's the unknown, it's covering the ground, it's multiple types of areas. So you don't have to put a hide on the ceiling and hide deep in a ditch or something. I'm being, you know, you can have relatively that hides that if they were one hide search, they would be doable by an intermediate team, let's just say. But the complexity comes by either having several that are somewhat proximal, or because of the navigation through the environment, that makes the challenge. There's so many factors you have to consider in setting hides and understanding odor movement, and then adding in the human component, not just the dog component.
Right. There are a lot of different factors that you're testing or considering. So
Right.
beyond kind of the technical stuff, what kind of experience do you hope they have? And maybe a better way to ask this is when somebody's done with one of your searches, what would you want them to say?
Yeah, I mean, I come out of once, and frequently I'll miss one in a detective search. I shouldn't say frequently, but if I'm not going to get a detective cue, it's usually because I've left one behind somewhere, and I don't want to say I haven't. I don't call false alerts, because then tomorrow I'll go out and call a false alert. But recently, I have not called any false
Good.
alerts in
All right.
detective.
I'm knocking on wood for you.
So, but I want to come out and go, hey, that was a fun search. Yeah, too bad I missed that one. I kind of understand why. Maybe I go back and think about it later.
I'm going to
You know,
jump in. That word fun, define that, what that means to you. What is a fun search? Because that could mean a lot of things to a lot of
that's true
different
to
people.
different people. Was my dog engaged and
Mm,
uh, having a good time, so to speak? I mean, you can tell if your dog's having a good time. Are they in there? Are they actively hunting? Were they confident? Um, did I feel like I used whatever, considering I could be anybody, let's just say, used whatever experience I had to cover the area to the best of my knowledge? Were the hides that I found kind of interesting? Not super not, I don't mean they can be super challenging. That's not a problem, but um, just was it sometimes. Maybe you could even find three chair hides that, because of how they were configured, were super fun and interesting to work. Or maybe there's a hide in the molding or something that you're like, wow, really? So for me, the fun is a combination of how much did I enjoy watching my dog work and how much
Mm.
engagement they had. And I always enjoy watching my dogs work. So that's not.
I love what you just said there about did you enjoy watching your dog work? And that also makes me think about like, how do I define fun? And I think based on what you just said, it's that communication factor. It comes back to what you said earlier. Like, a fun search is when you actually can figure out what your dog might be trying to communicate to you in a difficult situation.
Yeah.
That's part of it. Or can you use what you learned about how odor moves to go, all right, well, again, it's communication. What's my dog telling me about what this odor picture looks like through their nose? And
Yes.
how can I visualize it then? Or even being a good teammate and being able to step in, and maybe it is a challenge. It's a little, time is a factor, right? Like if the dog had all the time in the world, they'd get it. But sometimes as the partner, you have to jump in and go, all right, what could possibly be going on here? And how can I help my partner? And when you successfully do that, that's a cool feeling. That's a fun search.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Vicky, I'm curious. This can be hard for judges to do because, um, you know, I'm going to ask you to tell me about a time as a judge that a search kind of went sideways on you. Whether it was weather, wildlife, distractions, because it's these little stories I find fascinating about the art of judging. Like, I know that all judges think long and hard about how to make searches fun and level appropriate, but sometimes something happens you just didn't expect. So, do you have a story like that that either made you go, oh gosh, or made you just laugh when you think about it now?
I'm going to have to think about that one.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe this has never happened to you. That's good.
I mean, I've had searches that didn't go the way I wanted to just because the hide didn't work the way I wanted to. But
Right.
I'm not sure. I can't think of any
Wow.
kind of weird and crazy things that might have happened
Okay.
during
Well,
during the search that I've set, which is probably good.
yeah. If you do think of any other, let me know. Just jump in with that.
Uh,
How about one of the things that we talk about in the parking lot that I'm sure is those searches where the queue rates are kind of low,
mhm.
right? The parking lot chatter is like what went on.
Right.
Um, yeah, when that happens, are there themes that you see? And is there something that competitors can take away from that?
I think there's always that faction that want to find blame on the hide or the judge or something else. So, and it's hard. I mean, I try to step back and go, okay, that was a tough hide. Maybe nobody else got it either, which you usually feel better that and warped misery loves company. Um, but still, the judge that set that had a reason for setting it there, hopefully, and what did make it difficult. And so I try to come instead of I'm just not one of those people that doesn't like to find blame. So
Right.
I try to find ways to figure out, even if it was a hide that nobody got or only one person got, what can I learn from that and how could I make my training better so that if I'm faced with something like that again, I might get it. So I think we've got to look at.
I think also, and maybe this will help you formulate some more thoughts. I think also as competitors, sometimes I've been guilty of this. I'll go talk to a judge afterwards, like if there's a
Right.
low Q rate, if I have a good relationship, and I'll be like, "What was up?" And you find out that it wasn't any one thing. It wasn't like a situation where maybe the high didn't work with the way the judge wanted, and then as a result, there was a zero Q rate. It could be one team did this, another team did that. It could be a lot of different things, I think, and we can't make assumptions that it was one thing. I remember one time we did a search where I got into a second room, but nobody queued. I didn't queue either.
Right.
And and I thought it was the second room hide, only to go find out that everybody actually missed the blank room, right? So
Yeah.
so the reason I thought it failed was not it at all. It was something else completely.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So does that help maybe
Yeah.
any other thought? Yeah.
Yeah. I think, when we get in those conversations, the parking lot conversations, we sort of have to take it with a grain of salt. And, I try not to quash people from talking if that makes them feel better. But at the same time, I try not to necessarily let it influence my thoughts until I have more information.
That's probably good. Yeah, because you compete, so I'm sure you encounter that as well. And now, like when you're the judge out there that's also competing, like you have a whole different perspective that you can engage in that conversation.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're never
So
going to be, no, the search, the same, a setup is not going to be the same for every dog because environmental conditions change all the time, even if it's an interior search. So during the day, things are changing. The odor's been sitting there. The doors have been opening. The ventilation has changed. The wind has changed. The temperature's changed. The barometric pressure has changed. It's not going to be the same search for everybody. So
yeah,
we'll never be able to level that playing field. And it may be that the time that you went in, everybody else got that hide. Let's go in the other direction. The time you went in, the hide wasn't available at that corner or whatever.
right. The line wasn't quite there. And the
Yeah,
other thing too, I think we need to think about is like every team is different. Every dog is different.
right.
Right. Yeah. That's some good. I think that's a good perspective for us out in the parking lot to keep in mind when that does happen. So we can maybe be a little bit more reflective on what is the actual lesson here as opposed to assigning
Yes.
blame.
Yeah.
I like that. One of the things I was really dying to talk to you about is you had said cherish the engagement with your dog in this amazing sport. You said that on an NACSW page, I believe.
Yeah.
I want to know, what does that look like for you when you say cherish the engagement with your dog? Because a lot of people do talk about that engagement. You know, this particular scent work, you even have said it builds relationships between dogs and handlers that are different from any other sport. So let's talk more about that. What does that mean to you, and how is that manifested in your life?
I think one of the things that we get through scent work maybe more than some of the other sports, not to lessen them because I know people have great engagements with
Right. And you
dogs.
participate in all of them, right? You participate in a ton of different things. So
Yeah,
yeah.
but in a definitely, they're all partnerships. Agility is, I sometimes feel like the engagement there is all the training that goes into all those different behaviors and things. And then when we get on the course, it's, having enough practice and confidence to put it all together in, during those 90 or 45 seconds or 30 seconds or whatever you have on that course. And nose work is similar in that you're doing training and learning, observing your dog, but then going into a completely different environment because it could be anything. Sometimes we're in fairgrounds. I mean, they have searches on some of the fun ones that I've missed are like on the old boats and stuff that they do sometimes
Yeah.
in California. Like, I want to do that.
No kidding. Yeah.
But they're, completely different environments for you and your dog. And um, just seeing how you as a team go in, and that engagement is, how am I supporting my dog and without interfering, and just, I don't know, I just, to me it's magical the work that they do for us, and then go, hey, there's a hide here,
Right. Yeah.
or is this what you're looking for?
Yeah.
I love the fact that they're so not serious, because sometimes that sounds too flat, but they're focused on their job, and
Yeah.
I'm getting this done. I'm going to find that thing. Yeah, it's just, I don't know. I like that. I said that. I forget sometimes how I phrase things. But it is something to cherish, because it's not something that everybody gets. When they don't try these things and don't
Yeah.
do activities with their dogs, it's just,
Right.
it is a partnership. You've made a partnership with an animal not of our species.
I know when I read that, what resonated with me is before my past two dogs, we didn't really do any dog sports. And I can only speak, I've only done scent work, so I can't speak for what the bond is for agility. But, when my other dogs who did not do this passed away, it was
Yes.
devastating, like it always is, right? Because they're a member of your family and, but I sometimes let my mind wander to my current dog that I've been working with for 3 years, what that's gonna feel like,
Oh,
and
yeah.
all the hours that we put together, training and all the travel time and hotel time and time in the search ring and, just all of that, and you know this animal better than you've known any other animal. You start to understand their own little personality and their quirks because you're putting them in situations where those start to come out.
Right.
Like that's what that meant to me, is just that relationship is so much stronger because you get to know this animal so much more intimately, and it's your buddy and your partner and your workmate and all of it, right?
Yeah, well, you're taking a journey with your dog. It's not just like you live with your dog. And I don't mean to lessen people that have pet dogs and just enjoy them for being around, but you live with a dog. Then, in the type of work we're doing, we're taking a journey with our dog. It's a long, continuous growth journey, and yeah, it's hard when you lose. I put
Yeah.
my 14-year-old down last year, and I was like, should I have let her go? Should I have waited a few more days and seen if she had made her turn? And it was hard because we had done so many things together.
Right.
So, yep.
Was this your blue Merle Aussie?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I when I was doing research again, like this is really hard because not only did you have so much going on, I had a hard time even thinking what I wanted to talk to you about, but I saw that I have a blue Merle. Like, so as
Oh,
soon as I saw that, I started looking at all the pictures and the puppy pictures you had.
she's amazing.
Was that your first scent work dog?
No, but she's the one I took the furthest. So I did summer with
Yeah.
her, and then I also did all sorts of agility championships, and I just kind of did everything with her. She was my everything dog.
Yeah. Special animal, special relationship.
Yep.
I would like to start to wrap this up, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't want to.
Yeah, it's been fun talking.
But the sad reality is we're running out of time. So, maybe if you had that much fun, we can have you back sometime and talk about some of the other things I'd like to talk about. Before we go, though, I want to do a segment called 7 Questions.
Okay.
So 7 questions. I'm going to give you 7 questions. I just want what comes to your mind first. Short answers, 1 sentence, 2 sentence.
Okay.
If I want a little bit more, I'll ask for a little bit more. Are you ready for this?
I don't know.
Yes, you are, is the answer.
Sure.
All right, 7 questions. When you're judging, beyond seeing competitors succeed, you love it when?
I just love seeing sometimes when the competitor's so surprised, like, alert. The dog works it out, and the competitor asks a question, like,
Right. You're like, really?
and
Okay.
they're right on. And of course, then they're succeeding, but still.
Yeah, I love it. What's one thing you wish more competitors knew about being a judge?
I think the value of our experiences helping us understand odor theory and odor movement so that we do try to place fair hides. I think sometimes competitors think we're trying to trick them, and I'm not. Can't speak for everybody, but sometimes hides can be tricky because of environmental factors or because of how somebody thought it was going to be tricky. So go in and let your dogs do their job.
You got to pick one here out of your 6, but or a couple. What's your dog's favorite reward after a great search? And I want you to get real specific.
Yeah, JJ's definitely toy. He's got to have a frisbee or a tug or something. And the others they're happy with toy rewards, but I do a lot of touch games too. So, I mean, not toy food. So, just the leaping up and touching my hand, or the Vizsla has a boing where he gets to just leap straight up in the air. And those activities are reinforcing for them as well as getting the reward.
That's awesome. That's a really unique answer I haven't heard yet. And part of my post-search ritual with my dog is the same thing. We'll go for a quick little run, and I'll put my hand out and have him do touches and run and jump. And he loves that. Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up. Rewards don't always have to be food or toy. They can be other things as well. Yeah. What's one piece of advice you'd give to your beginner self in scent work? And it's going to require you to go back a ways. I'm sorry, but
Well, in teaching beginner classes, I want being patient and getting in and just noticing, responding to the hide for a long, long time, because we want to build that sort of reflexive understanding in the dog that odor pays, rather than immediately saying, well, where's the alert behavior? I can't see when they're not telling me about it. Getting too hung up on the alert behavior versus taking the time to develop the value of the hide. And then the alert comes as we learn to read our dogs.
Do you have a signature distractor? One that just kind of always ends up with you at trials and people might see in the search area a lot?
Well, I use a lot of string cheese for treats for my dog, so often I'll just take the wrapper and stick the wrapper in as a distractor.
Okay. All right. So be sure to proof your dogs against string cheese if you're ever showing under Vicky. Vicky, wow, this was such a fun conversation. Thank you so much. And before we wrap up, I want to make sure people know how to connect with you and learn more about what you're doing. So give us some insight as to where people should go.
Well, I don't have a website. I'm horrible about that. I keep talking about it, but I don't. So I have my Facebook and then word of mouth, of course. My Facebook is either Ascent Canine or just my name, Vicky Lovejoy. And I'm in the eastern Washington, Tri-Cities area of Washington, but I travel all over.
You also teach Scentwork University. You have some courses there, don't you?
I've got one, the transition from agility to nose work. So,
oh, that's cool. And that's a good one because a lot of people have done that.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. So that could be really interesting. Like, how can you apply what you did in agility to be even more successful in nose work?
That, and also the challenges that people have because they're used to telling the dog everything to do, and the dog is very connected with their emotion and da 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 da.
Yeah. All right. And of course, you could also find Vicky in the AKC Judges Directory online if you're like, wow, I like Vicky. We need to have Vicky come to us. So, Vicky, thank you so much. It turns out I should not have been intimidated by you. I'm glad that you ended up saying yes, even though, wow, this is like landing like a superstar on the podcast. I know you don't like to toot your own horn, but you've been doing this for a long time. You've been there since the beginning. You've worked with like the founders of Scentwork, which is just incredible. So thank you for sharing all of your experience and your knowledge. And thank you so much for being on Alert Scentwork.
Thank you for having me. I've enjoyed it.